Hello and welcome to Quarterlight, your car brochure channel, and in today's episode, the Fiat Uno Turbo. Welcome back, and if you're new to Quarterlight, we're a car brochure channel looking at car brochures from around the world. If you think that might interest you, it would be very nice if you would consider subscribing. Anyway, back to today's episode, the Fiat Uno Turbo. The Fiat Uno, designed by Giugiaro of Ital Design, came out in 1983. The version we're looking at, the Fiat Uno Turbo IE, came out in April 1985. Today's brochure is actually from July 1985, so it's a very early brochure. And the thing about the very early brochure, it shows something that they changed very early on in production, so it's a nice little bit of history to see that little bit of a change and showing the earlier one, which would be very rare today. But let's jump straight into it and have a look at today's brochure. And what a striking brochure it is. We will zoom in and have a look at some of these details on the car on this front cover in a moment, because there is lots of little details. Mid-80s, we really had to shout about performance and these sorts of hot hatches, didn't we? So, turbos down the doors, etc, etc. You can't even imagine putting the word turbo on a modern car, can you? Nice brochure overall with all this red and Fiat Uno Turbo put on the bottom. At the bottom here it says Britain's top journalists give their verdict. So most of this brochure is actually like clippets from magazines and journalists praising the car and saying how fantastic it was. I always thought though the Fiat Uno Turbo, even though it was very striking and a good performance car, was often overshadowed by other performance hot hatches at the time, performance versions of the Renault 5 and the Peugeot 205, but this was equal to those, if not a little bit better, in the fun stakes at least. Now, like I said, there was a change on these early ones. This brochure, like I say, it's a 1985 brochure. It's a July 85, a very early one. They changed the engine sizes very early on in production, and this is showing the early engine size, and we'll have a look at that in a moment, and we'll have a look at the reason why they did change the engine size very early. But I would imagine anyone who's got one of these now from this date with the earlier engine must be a very rare car today, and it's nice to see this brochure is in such good condition. Anyway, let's open the brochure up. In fact, no, I promised we'd have a look at the image first. I'm forgetting myself. Let's zoom in on the image first before we actually open the brochure. So there it is, the big Fiat badge on the grille, of course, but then we've got this little Turbo IE badge on the grille as well in red stripe, and the big turbo graphics down the side, and you can see a little bit of a red spot on the alloy wheels, but there's a better picture of the alloy wheels actually on the next page. Typical Uno features, these first generation Unos, you've got a single wiper on there. But that red on a dark colour really shouts out, you've got something a bit performance, you've got something a little bit special, don't you? Anyway, like I say, let's open the brochure up. So when we zoom into the back here, we can see how the badging is, the Fiat badge at the time, and then Uno, and then we can see a little Turbo IE badge in there as well. Latch to one side, but you can see it's something different even without the Turbo IE badging. We can see that exhaust pipe saying it's something a little bit different. We can also see, if I move the camera up a little bit, you can also see a little bit of a spoiler. It's hard to see from that angle, but there is a little bit of a spoiler on there as well. Okay, and this is the front image. Again, we can see that turbo badging or turbo decals down the side and the red stripe. Those unusual polished alloy wheels. Overall, quite a striking looking car. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the text. On the 21st of July, the Fiat Uno IE was launched at the British Grand Prix. Obviously, that's the UK launch. Given the car's performance, it was highly appropriate setting. It's the first hot sports hatch in its class to boast turbocharger, fuel injection and intercooler. It's also one of the first compact turbo cars to offer totally predictable and controlled performance at all engine speeds. Impressive credentials which we asked Britain's journalists to scrutinise with extreme care. These are their early flight reports. So let's have a look at some of these reports. So the first little report comes from Performance Car in July 1985. In its hottest new guise, the little Uno drove 105 bhp from its turbocharged 1299cc power plant. At an unladen weight of 845 kilograms, that's 126 horses for every tonne. Precisely a match for the popular Peugeot 205 GTI. Then there's the impudent little Uno's top speed, all 125 miles per hour of it, according to the manufacturers. That's more than 10 miles per hour clear of the most obvious rivals and, again, a match for GM's wind-cheating GTE, so it's even comparing it against larger cars as well. And just going back to that, that's 1299cc power plant. That's really what the difference is in this car. So basically at launch it came with this 1299cc engine, but very early in production they changed that to a 1301cc engine, and that makes this brochure a little bit unusual, a little bit rare, and also the same with the cars. If you got the originals with the 1299, a little bit rare because it was changed very early in production. So why such a small change? Well, the result was really a change of Italy's highway system, allowing high speed limits or higher speed limits to cars over 1300cc. So they very cleverly just tweaked it so it just went over that 1300cc so you could have a higher speed limit. Very clever little thing to do, but like I say, originally with a 1299cc power plant. Then we get a couple of extra little images. First of all, showing a nice close-up of that Turbo IE badge, which I do appreciate, and then a nice side shot really showing off that turbo graphic running down the side of the car. Does look something a little bit special, doesn't it? This is another little report, this time from Fastlane in June 1985. I'm not going to read it all, but let's just read a little bit of it. It says, "What is certain is that this really is a remarkable little engine, setting a new standard for its capacity and combining a wide spread of torque, to the extent that the turbocharger is completely unobtrusive, with levels of refinement even when pushed to its 6,500 RPM limit that are normally associated with much larger engines." So, really praising that engine. The engine, of course, is something that was used in the Strada or Ritmo, wherever you're from. That's where that 1.3 litre engine originally came from. What car, which was always one of my favourites, June 1985, faster than a Peugeot 205 GTI, more powerful than XR2 and Metro Turbo. Fiat's innocent looking Uno Turbo IE is the archetypal wolf in sheep's clothing. Always liked how they wrote these little things. It continues down the bottom to say the Fiat Uno Turbo IE has to be one of the ultimate Q cars, a restrained, refined three-door hatchback that packs the performance potential of a much bigger car. And there's also a report from Car Magazine, June 85, Fiat's long-awaited Uno Turbo is out. With an ultra-refined, powerful engine, the result is a mini car with GTI Go. You get a few more images as well, another of the front shot with the lights on, and then this dashboard, which looks really funky, doesn't it? I do like the dash on these Uno Turbos. This one's got quite a little bit more conventional dashboard. Although I seem to remember you can actually option it to have a digital instrument display, which was very 80s. Nice sort of red carpeting, Uno Turbo IE right on the steering wheel there. But it also was showing, it was quite a practical car with this split fold rear seats. But, what a fabulous interior. They weren't scared in the 80s of really shouting that this is supposed to be a sporty car. Now, I don't know if you noticed at the bottom here, of course, in red, 0 to 60, 8 seconds, maximum speed 125 miles per hour, turbocharged, fuel injection 1299cc power unit with intercooler, tilting and sliding glass sunroof. I never actually drove one, but it must have been so much fun to drive. Okay, so let's turn this page because there is more little reports, etc., and some nice little images there as well. So we've got this little bit of one on a racetrack by the looks of it, and we even get a nice little image of that Fiat Turbo engine, and a little image of that polished alloy wheels. I'm not sure if they were standard or not, but they look very nice. Particularly like that little red R-bar symbol in the centre there. We got something there from Autosport, 25th of April 1985, Fiat's Turbo Flyer. The Uno Turbo has been in months in development, mainly because the Fiat engineers set out to avoid simply bolting on a turbocharger package to the existing power plant. We got motoring news, 17th of April 85, the 125 mile per hour maximum speed claim is going to set new standards for the Super Mini. And then finally, Autocar, 17th of April 1985, for this is no boy racer special but a carefully developed and finely tuned sports hatch. Actually, there is one more from Motor, April 85, based on the cooking Uno 3-door. The Turbo ignores the tartan tinsel approach of the loud stripes and big spoilers. I don't know about that. I think it is quite loud with all its graphics on there. Instead, it offers understated styling with the tingling performance from a 1.3 litre engine that sets new standards in turbocharging technology. Then the red lettering continues on the bottom of the page, 5-speed gearbox, CD factor of 0.33 and alloy wheels. And you can see that engine capacity being that more rare 1299cc engine. Not going to read it all, but of course you can pause on these specifications if ever you need to. And to be honest with you, I think the only real issue with this was, Italian car, a little bit fragile, I don't know if they lasted quite as well as some of the French performance hot hatches, but nevertheless, I think it's right up there as one of the best. And interesting, even with this performance car, major service interval still only every 12,000 miles. And then some of the equipment that this car had on it. And those specifications continue. And then the dimensions. With a bit of comfort on there as well. And then the performance at 125 miles per hour top speed, 8.3 seconds 0 to 62. And the fuel economy figures were still really good, weren't they? Looks like metallic paint was also standard on here as well. And then at the bottom here, that's very early date for the Uno Turbo, July 85. So there we go, the Fiat Uno Turbo IE, right in there in the 80s hot hash era, and one we sometimes forget. Any memories of this car, please do jot that in the comments, but for now we'll say please do take care, please do like, and if you could subscribe that would be fantastic, and we'll see you very soon. Goodbye.